I mean, the first time I came down to St. Mark's, I was about 13 years old. My mom brought me down here to see an off-Broadway play. Um, Growing up in Jersey City, it wasn't that difficult to get here. It was a bus ride and a PATH train to 9th Street. And, just started coming over, listening. And all along I'd been listening to music. At that point it was probably like The Doors and Jefferson Airplane and just as much music as I could get listen to. I was listening to, and of course all the class, Stones, Who, everything, everybody. Hendrix, huge Hendrix fan. So I guess I kept coming back to St. Mark's. One of the first things I did was there were shops on the block on St. Mark's Place at that time selling buttons and posters and things like that. And I started, buying some, hanging it in my room, wearing some of the buttons. And, friends of mine was saying, "Hey, that's cool. Where you get it?" So I started actually bringing some of that back to Jersey City and selling it to them. That was my sort of first intro into the business. And then I guess at some point I got into psychedelic lighting for a little bit. That kind of came and went. And from there, I started selling rock and roll T-shirts. I started selling rock and roll T-shirts that I would buy in New York. I think the company, I can't remember the name of the company, I think it was called Our Front T-shirts. And I would sell them again. And one thing kind of led to another, and ultimately I ended up working for a different store called Limbo back in the early 70s, like 72, that was in this location. It was the upstairs, and I started working for them. And I guess I did a year of college in Jersey City, and then to appease my parents, the trade-off was, okay, I'll go to college. But I went to FIT for a couple of years, but I just, so I did that. I graduated there with a buying and merchandising degree. I'd worked for this company that was here for on and off for about 2 years, and the opportunity presented where they were closing down their company, and they wanted to try to sell off some of the locations that they had, and I was able to, buy this location with the help of a loan from my parents, and I started Trash Vaudville here in 1975. Basically, for me, it was the way I was going to be able to stay close to music. I mean, there was always a music scene down on St. Mark's. Whether it was beatniks or hippies or whatever was going on. I mean, the Five Spot was still on the corner, which is a super famous jazz club downstairs from at the time. Now it's the St. Mark's Hotel. At the time, it was the Valencia Hotel. And I love music so much. Basically, shows I went to, things like that, and I figured the best, this was the closest way I was going to have to really kind of stay close to the scene. And it was, Fillmore had been around the corner, the Electric Circus had been across the street. I mean, this was like one of the meccas, as far as I was concerned, for the whole music scene. So early on, when the store first started, we did vintage and new. I mean, I'd say 50% of the store was new clothing that we were buying, and the other 50% was vintage. And through the vintage clothing, we were really able to gear it towards a sort of, I don't want to say, lack of a better word, rock and roll clothing kind of vibe, because, we were doing, really good 50s stuff, lots of pink and black Aberdeen shirts, and, of course, based on what we could find, vintage motorcycle jackets, this, that, great vintage Levi's. And I think relatively within, I'd say, doing it for, it's hard, I mean, it's a long time ago, it's almost 41 years, but I'd say within about a year, we seemed to be starting to develop a clientele a little bit, and a good bit of it was made up of, musicians, local musicians even, and entertainment people, and a little bit, and people would come to us, if, sometimes stylists or photographers would come to us if they were looking for a specific look. And I guess it just kind of grew from there. I can't put my finger exactly on at what point it seemed like we had this, kind of starting to get a reputation for having clothing that was a good place for musicians, people in bands. I like to think we did it from a creative perspective. It was my tastes, I like to think, and what I was doing, and clothing, fashion, another form of expression like music, like rock and roll, it seemed to go hand in hand. As I said earlier, for years and years, I've been watching musicians going to live shows, going to see bands, seeing them on all the shows, and obviously, the way they presented themselves was a really important part of the band. Whether it was, the Beatles wearing matching suits or the Stones, each one had their own individual amazing look, or, whoever. So I guess it just kind of sunk into my head, well, look, this is what they're wearing. I'm going to try to, inventory the place in merchandise that I think might be kind of cool for them, that they might dig. So that was it, and it seemed to work. I mean, I remember early days, Carlos Santana coming out, huge Santana fan. My musical taste is sort of all over the place. I mean, and kind of the way I felt about music, I felt about clothing. Even if it wasn't specifically my taste, good is good. You know what I mean? You may not love it, it may not be your favorite, it may not be your actual cup of tea, but you got to respect, good is good, at the end of the day, whether it's music or, fashion or, cars or whatever, good is, if it's good, it's good. You got to at least give it credit. And that's what we did. Early on, I guess, when it really, in the earlier days, I mean, when we were still doing a lot of vintage clothing, we had like, the Ramones were coming in since like the early days. I mean, they just from the area, Marky Ramone's still close friend, comes in, still getting his black jeans from us. My wife still does things for him, through Trip. We do, jackets, things that he would like. And Joey used to come in with his mom, getting black jeans, things like that. But, in those early days, like I said, I remember when Carlos Santana first came in. I mean, that was an amazing thing. I guess Keith Richards came in, Lynn Goldsmith, the great fashion, rock and roll photographer, of course. She brought Dylan into the store on a Sunday night. He wanted to shop right after we closed. For example, as I said, we did vintage, so we knew that Patty Hansen really liked old vintage black Aberdeen Western shirts. So one time, whenever we would get one that we thought she would like and would fit her, we would always leave her a message that one had come in, and she came in with Keith Richards one time, which was pretty amazing. But always, all along, we had these people. But of course, one of the big memories I have is Bruce Springsteen, because, being a Jersey guy, and spending my summers at the Jersey Shore, he started to come in on a pretty regular basis. And, one of my personal amazing memories of this whole thing is that one time when he came in, I guess I was wearing this old pink and black flannel shirt. It was, old when I got a vintage shirt. And it was pretty beat up, so I said, well, I'll keep it for myself. I'm not even going to put it out on the rack for sale. Somebody had taken the pocket off to patch the cuff, that kind of thing. And he came in and he said, Ray, I love that shirt, man. You got to sell me that shirt. I said, no, look at it, man. It's over. He says, and we went back and forth. The colors, sell it. No, it's almost, sell it. No, I said, here, man, you can have it. Just take it. And he ended up wearing it on the cover of the River album. If you look at the shirt, you can still see the button, but the pocket's missing where the pocket was. And he sent me this, I got this huge blow-up color poster of the album called Dear Ray, thanks for the shirt, Bruce. So, I mean, to me, like this, I still get chills when I think about that, yeah. From then on, it was great. I mean, then the whole punk thing started to kind of happen now. Now it's like we're getting in. So more and more bands, you know, Mike Monroe, Stiff Bathers, Dead Boys. You know, the great thing about it was not only, you know, it was obviously it was good for business, but for me, it was like I was in heaven. I was in rock and roll heaven, you know. And it was getting to hang out and talk to these people and get to go to their shows and that whole thing. And you know, that was almost, I guess, more important to me than anything. So I got to, you know, all the CBGB mentioned, Ramones, Blondie, Mink DeVille, you know, Dead Boys, you know, all those guys were starting to come around, and you know, and they would started to, you know, kind of, you know, they would come to shop or just to hang out, and you know, we would listen to music, or somebody would say, hey, did you check this band out? They would just come by and drop off a cassette or something, you know, like that. And yeah, I guess, and then the next phase, I guess, it was when you know, all the English punk bands started coming over, and you know, the Clash, for example. I was a huge Clash fan, and Nick Jones and Joe Strummer and their road manager, Cosmo Vinyl, they would come in every time, and you know, Nick said we had the best black jeans, because you know, that was the first thing we ever actually made specifically for the store with the Trash and Vaudville, were our black jeans, and which we still make to this day, pretty much the same jean. But and that was it. You know, it just kind of kept going. You know, for me it was, and as I say, that was the best part. One thing, Trash and we tried to, you know. We have a big reputation, which I'm so proud of, in the whole punk movement. But I always felt that Trash and Vaudeville was just sort of like, I guess for lack of a better term, a rock and roll clothing store. We sold bondage pants. We sold, you know, everything. You know, all types of zipper T-shirts, and we sold all types of punk gear. But we also sold drape jackets, and we also sold anything that we thought was cool. That's what we kind of thought belonged somewhere in the store. And I guess that's what helped, that we kept, and we evolved. You know, we took lots of chances. I think that's what helped us also to keep it going, was that we sort of took, you know, even if something, there were things I gotta honestly say we bought that we knew from a business perspective or a sellability perspective, we're not going to be great, but they were just so freaking cool, we had to have them in the store. Nothing else, we had to have that, you know, because nobody else was going to have it. And even if nobody bought it, they were going to say, wow, that's cool. So that was it, you know, and then, you know, even going backwards a little bit, I mean, you know, Iggy and Lou Reed and all these people that, you know, came in, who, and then in the 80s actually got, you know, to meet Iggy and all in that, and Slash came in, and as you know, maybe, you know, Jimmy upstairs is quite friendly with Slash, so, but we all, you know, like I said, I think we were able to keep it going and transcend, keep going, because we didn't forget our roots, but we did keep it current. When punk was happening, we moved, you know, we were doing it, and we never stopped doing it. When, let's say, I don't know, let's say more of a techno cyber type of thing was happening, we did it. We were bringing it in. We traveled around the world to find stuff that if it was happening, which, you know, the majority of stuff that was apparel-wise that was happening, you could say, was coming either out of the U.S. or the U.K. You know, and that was pretty much it. I mean, there was some great lines coming out of France and out of other countries, but if you had to pick the majority of it, it was coming out. So we were bringing in lots and lots of stuff out of the U.K. We started early on. In the late 70s, we started bringing stuff in. We were the first ones that brought Dr. Martens to the U.S. We brought ID Magazine to the U.S. And so we just tried to stay current, you know, and, you know, whatever was happening, never forgetting basics, never forget, like a basic black jean, like a basic black and white striped T-shirt. And, it seemed that bands appreciated what we did, and that was the best thing that, for me personally, that I could, that was the reward. That was so cool. So yeah, different bands just kind of kept coming in, and to this day, we still do. And we just wanted to just keep kind of cool things in the store, you know. Entertainment people. Nicolas Cage used to shop here pretty regularly. He brought Marie Presley here once. Other actors, Ewan McGregor. And to this day there are still bands. I mean, and from all genres. I mean, whether it's from hip hop or whatever music genre, we basically, like I said, good is good, and we're happy to be part of it. Well, so been here now. It'll be almost 41 years that we're here, and love St. Mark's Place. I mean, to me, it always was, always it will be a magic street. There is something special. I'm not talking about what businesses occupy stores. There's just something, I think, in the air, something that flows, something that originally made people want to congregate around St. Mark's, whether it was the 50s, the 60s, whenever. It's just a certain vibe that goes through the air. And it's been a really amazing time for us, but we felt it was just sort of time to maybe now make a move. It's a combination of things, It's like people have asked, like, well, is it the rent? Yeah, the rent got high, but it's been high for a long time. Is it? I don't think it's any one thing. I think it's really a combination. I think the nature of the majority of most of the businesses on this block has greatly changed. I mean, one thing St. Mark's usually always had, especially in the heyday, was a good variety of types of businesses, whether it was hair cutting or record stores. For one reason or another, a lot of those businesses have left, whether it's the same reason, because people buy records online or because they buy books online. So, or hair cutting places went to other blocks where it was maybe more affordable, or whatever the reasons were, they've left. So we kind of I feel like we hung out for a long time, and finally, it started to basically take a toll on us as well, the business aspect. The whole world changed. It's like everything changed. The whole e-commerce world, the whole online thing. I mean, it is what it is. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. It just is what it is. And I think that the amount of merchandise, and a big part of this, the amount of merchandise that we used to be able to find to fill a space the size of Trash is now, became increasingly harder to do. We just couldn't find it. I mean, when we used to go to London, as I said, in the 70s or the 80s, we found so much amazing stuff, and there was so much stuff available to us from manufacturers in this country, doing what we did. And what we combined with what we make ourselves with Trip, it was easy. It got increasingly difficult. We really felt that, so we just said, you know what? We started thinking about it about 2 years ago, and but where do we go? We started looking. We going to Broadway? No, that didn't seem to make sense. Soho, we tried it a couple of times. It really didn't work for us, and didn't want to go back again. Looked at the Lower East Side, looked at different places, and nothing felt really, really right. And then finally we said, well, why don't we just stay in East Village? And next thing that became we looked at West 8th Street. We said, let's stay in the East Village. And what became the next hurdle was to find a space that was big enough, that was not gonna kill us on the rent, and we found a place on 7th Street between First and A. And it turns out, I mean, I always loved that block. I had a friend in the early 70s that lived on that block. I always loved that block. And walking down it, it just had a great feeling. You know, there are the businesses, there were real restaurants on that block, some really good ones. I mean, like Miss Lily's opened on the corner of 7th and A. You got Niagara right across the street. There's Big Gay Ice Cream on one side. There's a guy selling analog stereo equipment and records. I mean, there's a couple of hair cutting places. There's a couple of good vintage stores. So there was more of that variety that St. Mark's once was. So the space presented itself and said, let's go for it. And that's it. And so we're pretty excited. I mean, obviously, I've spent the majority of my life here, and you know, I can have melancholy moments about it when the reality sets in and I'm really going to be leaving. But I'm also, having said that, I'm pretty excited about having a sort of a new canvas to start with as well. It's it'll be a bit smaller. It's about maybe a little less than half of this overall 2 floors. Similar layout, 2 floors there as well, and. Yeah, so that's it, really. We're just hoping for the best. Everybody's coming with us. Jimmy's coming with us. The whole crew is coming with us. You know, we're gonna try to create as close to the same vibe, you know, that we've had here. I mean, obviously, this took about 40 years to get it to where it's kind of instantaneous stickers. I don't think will appear, but it'll happen. I think it'll, and we feel good about it. So we're pretty excited.